Hi guys, I'm sequestered home from this corona stuff, so I thought I'd make this video I've been meaning to make for a while. It's going to be about how to pack your parachute in about 7 minutes pretty easily and reliably. I've been packing this way for 125 jumps or so, and I haven't had any malfunctions or hard openings, so yes, I could use a little more data, I suppose, but I think I have enough data to share with you guys how I do this stuff. A lot of these tips and tricks aren't my ideas. They come from talking to other packers over the last few years about how they pack. But first, I'd like to talk a little bit about hard openings and bad openings and why I think they happen, and that will justify some of the shortcuts that I take later when I show you how to pack the parachute quickly. So first, let's take a look at a couple examples of hard openings and try and dissect why they're happening. Take a look at these videos.
My theory for hard openings is that the canopy catches air much sooner than it should, rather than the slider catching all the air. In this video, we see when we look up that the canopy has a ton of air in it. All of the front cells are open and catching air. This all happens very quickly at the beginning of the opening sequence. Here's another example of a tandem canopy having a hard opening. You can see that the canopy itself catches air much faster than it should. Going back to the first clip, we can see how much air is already in the canopy, which helps drive the slider down the lines and make the opening a lot snappier.
So I think the big takeaway here is that we want the slider to catch as much air as possible while not allowing very much air into the canopy during the initial few seconds of the opening. So if we pack our slider carefully so that it catches the air and not the front of the canopy, the nose of the canopy, then we'll probably have a better shot at not having a snappy opening.
Next is an example of a parachute opening correctly. Here it is again in slow motion. One notable difference is that once the lines are fully extended and the canopy leaves the bag, the slider catches all of the air, with the canopy almost hidden behind the slider. The canopy does not have much air in it yet. Because there's not much air in the canopy yet, the canopy itself is not expanding yet, which means that there's not much force driving the slider towards the risers just yet. This is what we want. As air works its way into the canopy, it expands and then drives the slider down the lines towards the risers. When we have a hard opening, this process happens much too fast. Hence why slider position is so important in the opening. It seems that many hard openings happen on very large canopies. This might mean that due to the way hard openings happen, the sliders on these canopies run a little smaller than they should, especially given larger canopies typically are used by newer jumpers and maybe they're not as good at packing yet. Here's the first couple seconds of the good opening slowed down just to see what the slider does. You can see the slider bows and catches most of the air, with the canopy almost hidden behind the slider.
Another takeaway I see from these videos is the importance of having your lines organized in the center of the canopy so you don't get a line over. And I also think that all of the extra flaking that you do when you first start folding your canopy up, first start packing, is completely unnecessary, because as soon as the canopy hits the wind, everything goes completely chaotic, and those extra folds you might be doing are just a waste of time. Anyway, let's just get started. I'll show you how I pack now, and it takes about an average of 7 minutes. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. I'm definitely willing to talk about this, and if you see something that you think is unsafe, then yeah, let's talk about it. Anyway.
I'm starting my stopwatch now. I give the canopy a good shake now to help get everything in line. I always check that my lines aren't twisted or crossed in some weird way. I then organize the nose and give it another shake. I make sure to push the slider into the canopy as far as possible. This is very important. I do not flake my entire canopy at this step. I just make sure my C, D, and steering lines are in the center of the canopy with no fabric wrapped around them. Then I just roll the canopy around those lines a little bit. As I mentioned earlier, all that extra flaking probably does nothing. I take a couple extra seconds at this point to make sure that the front edge of the slider covers the nose of the canopy. This means burying the nose in the canopy a little bit. The reason for this is that I want the slider to catch all the air when the canopy first deploys. This reduces the possibility of hard openings drastically. Gently lay the canopy down on the ground. Here I go back to straighten my lines, though I'm not sure I need to do this. Had I used a heavier weight, I guess I wouldn't have had to do that. Cock your pilot chute. Here I use Pack Monkey to help me put it in the bag quickly. You don't need to use the Pack Monkey though, if you want to just take advantage of some of these earlier steps. I don't spend all day laying on my canopy. I just get enough air out as I need to make these S-folds. Using Pack Monkey and the folding method with it, I can get the remainder of the air out in this step. Perhaps all the small flaking done with the conventional pro packing method allows you to fold the canopy a little bit smaller and therefore put it in the bag a little bit easier. However, with Pack Monkey, you can compress the entire canopy down and easily put it in the bag, allowing you to skip some of those small folds. I use my legs here to help keep the canopy in the bag while I close the deployment bag. I double stow my lines here, as recommended by many of the canopy manufacturers. Again, if you are very good at S-folding your canopy and putting it in the bag without Pack Monkey, then you can probably just do all the steps that I'm doing now and still pack just as fast. However, I prefer to use Pack Monkey because it's easier for me, and maybe it will be for you too. I have a semi-stowless bag, so this step here is potentially faster, though I'm not really sure which type of bag is faster for packing. I stay in the same place as I tuck my risers into my rig. This saves a little extra time too. I give my risers a little tug downwards to make sure they are both symmetric and snug against the rig. Using a closing tool to close your container, I found, is just faster than using a pull-up cord. I bought one that has a small rubber washer at the front that seems to make the string stay in the right place a little better. Close the container as usual, using your knee and body weight to make sure the container doesn't work against you as much as it wants to. As you can see throughout this video, I'm not the most coordinated or fastest packer, nor am I moving very fast as I'm packing. I believe basically anybody could be capable of packing in this way in around the time that I do. In fact, I am sure there are things that I could do even faster myself. So if you have any suggestions for how I can make my pack job faster, I would also like to know. Please leave a comment below in that case.
Yeah. That's it. So that was 6:39 that time. That's maybe a little under average. If you have any questions or comments, please let's talk about it. Otherwise, let me know what you think. Anyway, thank you.